This time I have a Panasonic Super VHS machine. Fellow that owns it doesn't know much about it. Thinks it may have a problem but doesn't know. So we're going to check this one out, see what's wrong, see if we can get this one working. Let's check out and see what I've got. This time I have a PVS7670 Super VHS machine. It's taped over the record button so they don't accidentally record, I guess, on it. I got this one to check over. They don't know what's wrong with it. It just was brought in and said, please check over. So there might not be anything wrong with this, but then there might be. So let's just plug it in and check it over. The picture kind of looks to be fluttering a bit just on the blue screen. I wonder how the picture on playback is going to be, but that doesn't look very good right there. That looks like we may have a power supply problem. Oh.
There's also a hyperscan feature that allows you to channel circuits.
Yeah,
the regular version of.
That doesn't sound good, does it? So this unit does indeed have a problem. Let's crack this one open and see what's wrong. This was making quite a noise when the head drum was spinning. I think this drum might be shot. I mean, that sounds like something is rubbing on the head drum. Maybe the rotary transformer is no good. Hear the racket it's making? The picture's shaking like crazy. Let's just pop the top of the head drum off and take a look underneath here. This one here, I believe the rotary transformer is actually part of the upper drum, if I'm not mistaken on these ones. I hope if I have the right bit in my screwdriver. Before I remove this, I will mark which direction it's coming off, so I know which side it's on. So we'll mark the shaft in this little side with a little black mark, just so I know which way it goes on when I put it back on. There's the rotary transformer on this one. What's making the noise? Is it the motor? Yeah, it could be the bearing underneath. I guess I didn't need to mark it because there's an alignment hole right there that lines up with that one. That would have been for the automatic assembly, but the bearing is certainly making noise. So I'll have to pull the mechanism apart and just take a look underneath. It sounds like something's rubbing. Like maybe something has gotten in between the rotor and the stator, the motor, the coil, the stator assembly. Because it just feels like it's dragging, like it doesn't spin like it should. Like that should spin a lot more free than it does. So we'll pull the mechanism. I want to take a look at the bottom of the drum and just see if there's something in there that's gumming it up. So I got to pull the face off the unit to get into it. We'll pull the mechanism out. Now this machine, it would have a lot of hours on it. This is used by a company that archives tapes that I do some work for. So this is not a low hours machine. This is probably a very high hours machine. I'm guessing, but I know that my archiving machines that I use have got like literally thousands upon thousands of hours just because they're in constant use. Push that forward so I can get to the screws down here. And a couple more at the back here. Gonna pull this board out and get that bracket out of the way. This is the S-video board. Take that board out. Now I can remove this bracket so I can pull the chassis, just so that I can inspect it. All that work just to pull out the chassis. It should lift. Bracket comes out. It should lift out. Just like that. I want to inspect this motor. Well, I don't have an Allen key that's small enough to fit this. It's like to be at 1mm, but I've just been doing some careful lifting up around the edges here. Just prying it down just a bit. Like this. And now, see if we can get the noise to stop. It looks to be out of balance a bit. Should be a little bit of a low spot right there. Here. I think it might have been just rubbing against the coil. Maybe a bit of debris or something got on the magnet. That's quiet. It's not making the sound anymore. That is no noise. Excellent. We'll just put the grounding electrode back on again and pop this thing back in and see what it does. See if it's nice and quiet and how the picture is. Because you saw how it was shaking before. Mode switch on this probably wouldn't hurt to be cleaned. I can certainly do that while I've got the mechanism out. I'll mark it where it stopped because this is where the mechanism currently is. As long as I don't move the mechanism at all, as long as I don't move the cam gear, the mode switch will stay there. We'll pop it apart. And clean it up. It doesn't look to be too bad actually, but we'll clean it anyway. Give it a shot of Neutral and clean it up. Put a little bit more on here just to leave behind as a residue because it does have lubricant in it. Put our switch back to where I left it and put the mechanism back in. Put the red screws back in the back. Now this one may need caps in the power supply too. We don't know about that yet, but these are from 1997, 25 years old, the machine. Plug it in again and let's see how it sounds this time. It's already sounding quieter. Looks to be playing just fine on the CRT. That's why I keep that little CRT here. My little Sony. This is a Super VHS tape I'm playing. My little Sony 8-inch Trinitron that I got for free about 30 years ago because, and the story on that, I think I've mentioned this one before. Anyway, that's a Super VHS tape playing. You saw how shaky it was before. And you could hear the drum rattling away. Now the drum's nice and quiet. So this one's fixed. Anyway, this TV. So, how I got this TV. Circuit board's got a major break in it. It's actually almost broken in two. But I got it when it was pretty much new. Customer comes into the TV shop I worked at, and they bought this for their, I think it was for their camper. Either their camper or their motorhome. Anyway, the knuckleheads didn't have the thing tied down when they drove away. And they went around the corner and the TV flew off whatever it was sitting on. It ended up on the floor. And the cabinet's all broken. I think that's just a glitch in the tape. The cabinet won't stay on. The cabinet's held together with, it's got electrical tape and packing tape on it to hold the cabinet together because all the screws were shattered, all the screw mounts were shattered. Circuit board had a great big break in it. So fortunately it was one that was not that difficult to repair. So I repaired the circuit board. If I kill some lights in here, the TV will actually look a little better because it's pretty bright here in the shop. So if I kill some of these studio lights, it will actually look a whole lot better than it does with all the lights on. Anyway, fixed it all up. Fixed the board up. Told the customer, okay, the circuit board's broken. Picture tube's fine, everything's looking good, but I had to repair the board. Repaired it with epoxy, put jumper wires over the sections that were damaged. And we told them, okay, it's fixed, but I can't put a warranty on the repair because the set was dropped. So the board's got a break in it. Therefore, I can't warranty it. It could last you 10 years, it could last you 30 years, it could last you a week. I can't guarantee the work because the board's been damaged. And they said, keep it. So, normally the boss would have just sold this to someone, right? But because the cabinet was all kind of cracked and stuff, he looked at the cost of replacing the cabinet and just said, you know what, you can take it, you can have it. Of course, I didn't get paid for the repair because they didn't go through with the repair. But I got a little 8-inch AC/DC TV, which I really like, and I've been using it here for years and years and years. And it's got a great picture. The tracking might be off slightly because I don't have the remote to do the tracking adjustments on this. I think you need the remote for this to do it. I'm pretty sure you can't do it from the buttons. Or is that, oh, maybe these ones will do it. There, that does it. There we go. There. It is. You use the, I guess it's the channel up and down buttons on the front Yeah, the channel up and down buttons on the front, these ones, these operate tracking when you're in playback. This one's nice and quiet now. I think I'll clean the heads on it before sending it out. So I can grab something to clean the heads with. Yeah, they were dirty. And we'll also do the same for the other heads. Clean the lower drum. Give it one more test. I think I'll put the scope on it and take a look at the RF. Waveform's looking not too bad. So playback might be fine, but I just noticed that this machine will not rewind or fast forward. If I push rewind, it just kind of moves a bit and then stops. So we have other problems with this, mechanical problems likely. I'll have to pull the mechanism again and check out the clutch. Just when I thought everything was good, it fooled me. It's not. I do believe we have a slipping belt, and that's why it's not going into fast forward and rewind. This belt is shot. See, I can stop it from turning without any effort whatsoever. So let's just change out the belt on this thing. See if I can find a better belt for it. All right, I fitted it with a new belt, and this one here is much stronger than the other one. It doesn't slip. In fact, this one here has got so much torque that if I stop the reel from turning, you can actually see the belt. It's got a good grip. So we'll try that belt and see what happens. Turn the mechanism back by hand to unload everything. So it still doesn't go into rewind or fast forward. For that matter, when it goes into search, it doesn't really even search either. It just kind of goes there for a few seconds and then stops. But the mechanism never attempts to advance into full fast forward or full rewind. I have to think maybe it has something to do with either a power supply issue, which is always a possibility. It could be bad caps on the power supply, or it could also be one of these sensors here isn't being read. Take up or supply sensor. Now, if it was a take-up side, it would stop on play. So it could be the supply side sensor is not being read correctly, or a connection problem on it. Because it has to detect what speed the tape reels are turning before it will go into fast forward or rewind. So we're going to check that out and see whether there's any obvious connection issues. I'll go over the sensors here just to reheat them, and I'm going to check a couple caps in that power supply. Of course, these are wonderful, these sets. They use these wonderful composite ICs, and we all know how wonderful these things are. Anytime I see these type of circuits, I get nervous, because you see these little black marks here? These are all resistors that are painted onto the board. But this isn't what makes these so bad. What makes these so bad is what's on the back side. You got it. Our favorites. Surface mounted electrolytic caps, which you know are going to leak. And they're really difficult to try to replace on this, because this is not a conventional circuit board. This is a piece of ceramic. So to try to replace them on here, what happens as soon as you start to heat it up, the foil, the traces on here, which are basically just stuck down, right? They're not etched like a conventional board, and it'll just peel right off. So Yeah, they're always lots of fun to deal with them. As a really like a bad design. But that was Panasonic for you. That's why I don't like Panasonic VCRs of this era. I made another little purchase on Marketplace today. I don't know about to show it to you guys or not. Nothing real big deal. But I picked myself up a little photo capture device. They call it a scanner, but it's not really a scanner. It's more just a camera that's in a box, basically. And it's focused on a 35mm film frame, like a slide or a negative, and you put them into a holder, and it lets you just capture them. And I'll be trying that out and see how that looks. So I used to have a proper scanner years ago, an HP, which did a phenomenal job of scanning. It was slow. It was really slow. Like, it took about 1.5 minutes to scan one slide, but it was incredibly high quality. But unfortunately, I can't use it anymore because the drivers aren't available for anything other than, I think Windows 98 was the last drivers they had. Maybe Windows. I don't even think they made drivers for XP for 98, 95 or 98. It was old. I was checking some of these caps here, see how they look. 0.1. Some of these caps could be like this one here, that's kind of gray in color. I don't kind of trust these ones when I see them looking like this, so we'll just we'll measure some of these and see how they look. 4.2. Oh, you can't see my meter, but that one's looking a little high. 4.2 ohms. So I think I'm going to change out a couple of these caps just to see if that will correct some of the issues that this thing's got. This one's changing color, so I when I see a cap that's changing color in a power supply, I always question it. So let's just pop this one out. This is on the primary side, so this one here would actually affect the oscillator and could affect voltage. Okay, let's pop this one out and just take a look. So 4.7 at 200 volts. It might be okay because it's relatively low as far as the value goes. 4.7 at 200 volts. Looks like anything under 5 ohms is probably okay. But let's just check it and see what it's at. So it's at 3.3. It's probably okay because it is a high voltage rated cap, and I don't have one anyway. It's 105 degree. It's gray in color, but I don't think it's discoloring unless it was blue at one time. But this may be the actual color on it. But being a 4.7 at 200 volts, it's within spec, so we'll leave that one alone. I do want to check some of these other ones over here, though. I got to pull them out though because some of them are in parallel with each other. So the thing with this unit is it's playing fine. It's just it won't go into full fast forward or rewind. And if I run the mechanism by hand, if I turn the loading motor by hand, mechanically it goes into the modes. So the unit itself is not, like the microcontroller is not telling it to go into fast forward or rewind. It does the run up like it would, where it's checking the reels, the reel speed, to determine where the tape position is, and then it just seems to stop at that point. And it doesn't go, it actually stops. I've unsoldered one lead of the caps in the secondary just so I can check them out and see what they look like isolated. That one looks fine. That one looks okay. 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. These all look okay. Alright, there's a couple of caps here that are starting to go a little bit high. These two. This one here is measuring up at 4.2 ohms. It's a 10 at, let's say 50 volts. 10 at 50. So 10 at 50 would be somewhere between 3.2 and 2.4. And it's a little bit higher. So that one's gone up a little bit. And the other one here, this one here is a 47. And it's at 1.6, 47 at 50. 47 at 50 should be like, like 0.68, between 0.68 and 0.56, according to the chart. So those two might be starting to go up a bit. Maybe I'll change those two out and just see what happens, whether it makes any improvement at all to the operation. I don't think it's going to change anything, but we'll change them just for the heck of it because we're already in here. I got a couple of newer ones that measure really low on the ESR meter, so I'll pop these two in. How low on the ESR meter, you wonder, compared to the ones that came out. So here is the 10. So the 10 microfarad is measuring in at 0.2, and the other 10 that came out of here was, what was it at? 4.7 or something? 5.0. And the 47 that came out was measuring at 1.8, and this one here that's going in is 0.2. So as you can see, they are considerably in better shape than what came out. So we'll try these and see whether that makes any difference to the way this thing behaves. Alright, it's back together enough that I can test it. Don't need to put everything in place. Like that's play. Go to fast forward. This other tape and see what it does. Play. Rewind. We'll go to rewind or it's going to stop again. You see? Still doesn't go to rewind, and it just does that. Rewind. It just reverses slowly, and then it shuts down, and then the power goes off. That noise that it's making, that sounds like the capstan motor actually. That grinding noise sounds like the capstan motor bearing is dry. This one was sent in to be checked over, so I gotta contact the guy that owns it and see whether he wants to continue down that road, because as I say, this is bearing is sounding pretty loose. That might be part of his problem. There's the capstan motor itself. As I say, this unit's had a lot of hours on it. Listen to this if I spin it. You think that might be one of the reasons it's not going to rewind and fast forward? Is it's detecting drag on the motor? Very likely that's what's happening. So I think I'm just going to leave it as it is. It plays, it doesn't fast forward or rewind, but as you can hear from the noise that this thing's making, this machine is just about completely worn out. It's owned by a guy that does archiving. So this machine would have had thousands upon thousands of hours on it. It wasn't actually a machine he brought me to repair. He just wrote on it, test. So we've seen what's wrong with this one. I mean, the drum motor was making a racket before it got that quietened down, but that capstan motor, is the bearing itself is shot on that. It just makes all kinds of noise when it tries to run at higher speed, when the pinch roller is not engaged on it, basically. The bearing itself is chattering. The belt was also slipping. I threw a new belt in. and I changed a couple caps in the power supply. They weren't shot, but a little bit out of spec. Oh well. Nothing really else I can do on this thing. It would need a new capstan motor, and it just wouldn't be worth replacing it because of the age of the unit. It's a Super VHS machine, but again, these things are relatively inexpensive to replace them. And I'm not talking about eBay pricing, because eBay pricing is not real pricing. eBay pricing is just idiot pricing. In other words, if you're an idiot if you pay that kind of money, because these machines do go for a dime a dozen. I've picked up 3 Super VHS machines in the last year, $25 for 2 of them and $15 for the third. So, and they were working. Well, 2 of them were working. One with the SLVR5, I had to put a plastic gear in, and I got a couple of other SLVR5s given to me over the last few years. One I kept and rebuilt, one I sold. So these are not worth a lot of money, these machines. So I'm going to close this one off and leave it at that. At least it's playing the tape, and that part's working, but there's a good chance he's just going to toss this one out anyway, because it's not reliable. If you can't rewind a tape, what good is it, right? So anyway, throw it together, and we'll be done with this one.